Okay, we're live. Okay, it looks like. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to run all this software here. There's a lot going on. Thank you for coming on, folks. I am Chuck Holton, and I'm in Jerusalem tonight. And I've been here since the 10th or so of October. So I've been following the war and going all around this country, trying to bring you a full picture of what's going on, not just standing on the hill overlooking Gaza and showing you the explosions, but if you really want to get a sense of the reality on the ground, you need to get some context. You need to get more than just the pictures of things blowing up. There's plenty of things blowing up, but you need to see just everyday life, and you need to hear the stories from the people. And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast. And so thank you for being here. I'm sorry if, we're a little bit late. Had some technical issues as usual. And so I want to make sure I get to everything that I wanted to do today. I put together some videos. First of all, a lot of you were asking about the video of the dog. I talked about an IDF canine that was being sent into the tunnels, and there's video of him charging and grabbing a Hamas guy, and the guy's screaming bloody murder. And I could watch this all day, but so a bunch of people asked for it, so I'm going to show it to you. So I could watch that all day, but I'm just because hearing that Hamas guy screaming in the background is maybe appeals to my penchant for slapstick. Nevertheless, it is pretty serious fighting going on there. I'll show you some video from the IDF going into Gaza. This is some of the fighting. I'm going to turn that down so it's not so loud. There, we'll dumb that down. So you see that the IDF is going in. They have encircled Gaza. They're pushing into Gaza City. I'm sorry, they've encircled the northern part of Gaza, pushing into Gaza City. They are taking, it seems like, about 3 or 4 casualties a day. They're being very transparent about the casualties that they take. They're putting the names out. They have a special website set up for the faces of the casualties. You can see here they found a bunch of weapons in, this is in Beit Hanun, right outside of Gaza City. And so they are finding lots of things like that. These are airstrikes coming in. Some people are saying that are claiming that those are like incendiary munitions, but they're not. So just a second, I'm going to see if I can fix this. And there's me. And my streaming camera doesn't want to stream now. Okay. Well, I got to back up. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things that are important in the news that need to be talked about. First is the fact that the war is actually a multi-front war. What I mean is it's not just a war between the IDF and Hamas in Gaza, and it's not just a war between the IDF and Hezbollah in the north. This is becoming a wider conflict, and you're hearing a little about it, but I want to talk about it a little more in depth. There have been 31 or 33 attacks on U.S. military personnel in this region since October 7th. That is a very high rate. Now, you might not know it, but we have 45,000 troops in the Middle East. And I want to show you a map of where those troops are, if I can. Yeah, there we go. You see this map here? We have troops we have about 900 in Syria, 1,885 in Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. In Iraq, we have some in Erbil, 2,500 troops. And thank you for George for the Canadian peso there. That's great. 9,000 troops in Bahrain, 8,000 troops in Qatar, 3,500 troops in the UAE, and a few hundred in Oman, 2,700 in Saudi Arabia, 2,900 troops in Jordan. Did you guys know this? And this is the one that I was surprised to hear, that we actually have a base now here in Israel. I wasn't aware of that. And I did a little bit of research and found out that the United States has been slowly and quietly building a base deep in the Negev Desert, which is in the south of this country. We don't have any numbers as far as how many people, how many U.S. troops we actually have there. I knew that there were some U.S. troops, like here in Jerusalem. I've seen them walking around. Special ops guys. Wow, Mike, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Folks, if you want to donate, you can go down to the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side. There's 3 little dots. You can click those dots and hit thanks, and you can donate like Mike just did. And the money that we collect here on the podcast is going to go to help people that I meet who are in need when I'm traveling around the world to bad places. So thank you very much, Mike. We'll put that to good use. So the United States actually has troops now stationed in Israel. This base in the Negev Desert is called Site 512, and I guess it was supposed to be classified, but it's not classified anymore because I read about it. It's a air defense radar site. So basically what it does is it has the ability to see incoming missiles, specifically from like Yemen and places like that, and shoot them down or pass them to somebody who can shoot them down. You know, alert Israel's system, something like that. Now, it does kind of beg the question of if Israel has this huge system of the Iron Dome system already in place all around their country, why do they need an American base doing the same thing down in the South? It just makes me think that there's probably more to it than that. I don't have any proof of that. I can't prove that, but I just think there's probably would not put a base like that in. Well, let's just say I've seen before they have put bases like that in for one reason, but then they call it something else, something sort of benign, like an air defense radar installation. I don't know. I might drive down there and go see how close I can get to it. I doubt I would learn anything, but it'd be interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen the Negev, but it is one heck of a desert. Looks a lot like the southern part of Afghanistan or most of Iraq. So why are there U.S. troops in Israel now? Good question. I don't know. Let's talk now about where some other places where we have U.S. troops that are probably a really bad place to have them. And that's Syria. Now, I've been to the U.S. base in Syria. Actually, I went to one of them by accident. I've been to a couple of them on purpose. When I was traveling with the Free Burma Rangers in, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago? 4 years ago. My trip 4 years ago to Syria. We drove in. We had a convoy of ambulances, which is what we do. The Free Burma Rangers is a humanitarian aid organization that goes into the frontline areas and saves people out of those areas and takes them to the hospital or whatever. I go in as an ambulance driver, and then I kind of do my journalism on the side, okay? So we went in there, and we were being escorted by some Kurdish soldiers. We go in with the Kurds. The Kurds own about the eastern third of Syria. They call it Rojava. And so we fly into Erbil in northern Iraq. That's Kurdistan also. We meet with the president of Kurdistan. He loves the Free Burma Rangers because of the work that we've done saving lives in with his troops up there. He gives us a piece of paper that essentially gives us carte blanche to go anywhere we want to go in the area under his domain, which is Kurdistan and Rojava. We then cross the border into Syria at Feshkabor and drive in and do our humanitarian work around the northern and eastern parts of Syria. And this particular trip was the very end of the ISIS caliphate. They had already been driven out of Raqqa, and they had been driven right down the Euphrates River to a place right along the Iraqi border called Deir ez-Zor. Now, if you know anything about the Armenian genocide, you'll know that Deir ez-Zor is a very important place to Armenians because it's where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Armenians took their last breath. The Turkish Ottoman Turks in 1915 to 1918 tried to commit a genocide against Armenians, and basically their way of killing them was to drive them south into the desert and walk them to death. They were surprised that so many of them made it to Deir ez-Zor because it's about 900 miles from where they started. And this is no food, no water, I mean, just driving them until they drop. And if they fall out, they shoot them and they just keep going. It's death march out in the desert. Along the way, there were Arab people that took pity on them and took them in. There were also Arab people that took advantage of them and took them in if they were a pretty girl or something like that. And they, took them in and made them concubines or something, converted them to Islam, whatever. Suffice it to say that to this day, there's still a whole line of Armenian villages now down the Kaba River Valley going south to the Euphrates. And the very end of the line for them was Deir ez-Zor, middle of flippin' nowhere, as far as you can get out in the middle of nowhere. And that happens to be where ISIS took its last stand. They had an island in the Euphrates that was essentially, or it was more of a little, I don't know, it wasn't quite an island, but anyway, 2 square kilometers of land. They had 30,000 people in there. Most of them were civilians that they had dragged along with them as human shields. The Syrian and Russian armies were on the west side of the Euphrates bombing the ISIS guys with artillery basically nonstop. They didn't care anything about the civilians. They could care less. On the east side of the Euphrates was the Kurds and some Americans. And the Americans were there in kind of an advise and assist role and to check all the people that were coming out of the ISIS area to make sure they weren't actual terrorists or weren't on some kind of watch list or something. So we're driving in there to go help those people. And almost all of them that came out of there were wounded. And we needed a place to stay the first night. We drove all day long. And by the end of the first night, the Kurds said, well, we know someplace you can stay. So we trusted them. And we just followed these 2 Kurdish guys in a pickup truck. And our whole convoy followed them right up to this base. And we thought it was a Kurdish base. Well, actually, half of it was. But the other half of the base was a place called Green Village, and it was actually a top secret U.S. military base. And as we drove through the gates, we kind of looked around and we're like, oh, holy cow, we probably shouldn't be here, because there were a tremendous number of special ops vehicles that were really, really tricked out. And if you know anything about the military, you start looking at vehicles like that, you can kind of guess this is not your average infantry unit. As it turned out, it was the CIA and SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and all those kind of guys. were there. And here we come with a ragtag, motley band of humanitarians, which included women and children, in a bunch of civilian vehicles and one up-armored Humvee, and then come driving in, and these guys are watching us go by like, what the heck is going on? Anyway, they were not happy with us being there and promptly ordered us to leave Syria. We told them, well, you don't own Syria, and we have a letter from the king of Kurdistan, so we're staying. We didn't stay in that base for very long. We left and went and camped out in the desert. But suffice it to say, I've been to these bases. They're very small, and they're mostly populated, the bases in Syria, mostly populated by special operations guys, high speed, low drag, Rangers, special forces, SEAL teams, stuff like that. Those guys are getting attacked on an almost daily basis now, sometimes multiple times a day, by kamikaze drones made in, you guessed it, Iran. So the milk toast Millie, no, it wasn't Millie, it was oh shoot, the black guy, I forget, Admiral, what's his name? I'll think of it in a minute. One of the top guys in the U.S. military, I just spaced on his name, kind of gave a warning. He gave a speech. Hey, Linda, thank you for the 1999, very kind of you. He gave a speech saying, you know, you better not mess with us. And so now if we're being attacked multiple times a day, in Erbil, they found suicide drones. In Syria, they found suicide drones. This is happening a lot. We've had 24 U.S. troops wounded and 1 American contractor killed by these attacks. So my question is, why are we not bombing the heck out of Iran at this point? Because if we said we are, oh yes, thank you. Lloyd Austin. Thank you, Don. Wow. He's kind of milquetoast too. Lloyd Austin gave this speech saying that, you know, you better not mess with us. We'll strike back. We haven't done anything. They've been attacking us for weeks. And so what's the problem? I don't know. Here's an even bigger problem, and I'm going to run out of time before too long because I do have another hit coming up. An even bigger problem is Incirlik Air Base. Now, Incirlik Air Base is in Turkey. It's our only base left in Turkey. I'm not sure if I have any footage of that. Let's see here. Nope, I don't have any footage of Incirlik. Incirlik Air Base usually has about 8,000 U.S. airmen on it. We have drones there. We have fighter jets there. And we have about maybe around up to 50 ICBMs, tactical nuclear missiles there. We're not positive that they're ICBMs. I think what I read is that they're like B-61 bombs, which is actually a variable yield. I don't know how that works, but suffice it to say, we've got nuclear bombs in Turkey at this airbase. And yesterday, thousands of protesters stormed the airbase. And can I just say that's a really bad thing? Now, the Turkish military fought them off with water cannons, and even the leader of this big rally that they were having sort of chastised the people for attacking the airbase. But my question is, what does America do if they take over that airbase? If a bunch of pro-Hamas protesters take over that airbase? Now, it's not like they're going to be able to fire the missiles or anything, but they could certainly wreck them. They could certainly make a big, it seems to me like the U.S. military would have to go hard and go in there with a Marine Expeditionary Unit and a whole bunch of missiles and a whole bunch of everything and actually kill a whole bunch of Turks. That's not going to make, hey, thank you very much, Dan. Wow, $50. That's great. Thank you for the generosity. We're going to make good use of that. I sent some money yesterday to our girls in Colombia because their whole neighborhood got flooded, and they have to walk through sewage to get out of their house. They can't go to work. They can't do anything. So we actually are working on getting them a different apartment that's in a better neighborhood, and sent them some money so that they could buy some food yesterday. So thank you very much. That's where that money goes. Wow, $100. Thank you, son. I can't read that name. That's very kind of you. Thank you. So anyway, suffice it to say that Incirlik is in bad shape. I mean, if it's surrounded, first of all, Turkey is not an ally anymore. Like Turkey's not, we don't like Turkey very much. They don't like us very much. Thank you for Angie. Thank you for the $20. You know, we don't. Turkey is ostensibly a NATO ally, right? But they're not. They're really not an ally. They support the Muslim Brotherhood. They support the Free Syrian Army, which is essentially the remnants of ISIS. So that's really bad. And we should have got those nukes out of there a long time ago. But the problem is, it's very hard to move them, because they're like the size of a Suburban, each one of them, and there's no way we would do that without Turkey knowing. And if Turkey saw us moving them out of there, they could very well lock down that base. They have used that base as leverage against the United States multiple times. They get mad at us, like in 1973, they got mad at us because there was a moratorium on the sale of, or we stopped giving them military aid, and they shut off the power to the base. I mean, they've kind of got America by the short hairs there, and that's a really bad thing. We need to get out of Turkey. What we ought to do is move our base to Kurdistan, because the Kurds are good friends of ours, and you know, if we need a base in the region, that's the place it ought to be. Now, maybe Israel is a place that a U.S. base ought to be. Maybe we will see a U.S. base here before too long, but suffice it to say, things are not great. We could do a whole nother podcast about the base that we have in Qatar, because Qatar is supporting Hamas and with money, and the leaders of Hamas live in Qatar. That's mind-boggling to me. We got like 8,000 troops there. Thank you, Bruce. 30. That's very, very kind. Bertha, thank you very much, folks. If you can't donate, that's fine, but please pray for me. Pray that I'll get the interviews that God wants me to get, and I'll be able to tell the stories that I need to tell. And I really appreciate all of you, for sure. I want to talk about this unit. I think it's 912. It's a Hezbollah unit. It is their external security. It's kind of like their CIA that is supposed to be gathering intelligence. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they have people inside Israel as spies. There's lots of spies everywhere. There's spies. The King David Hotel is right around the corner from me, right over there, literally one block. And it's like a hotbed of spies. All the spies stay there. And if you go read any spy novel that takes place in Israel, you'll hear a reference to the King David Hotel. So that is, I mean, that's the Hezbollah unit. It's not surprising. Shin Bet, the Israeli version of that, has definitely got people inside Gaza, has got people inside Lebanon, inside Syria, and is making good use of that. They are very, very bold, let's put it, very intrepid, the guys from Shin Bet. Thank you for the Korean, it looks like Korean money, I think. Very kind. Folks, I've got to go. They're going to call me from Newsmax here in about 2 minutes. So I'm going to run. I'm sorry for the little bit shorter podcast today. I had some technical problems at the beginning, but we're getting this thing ironed out, and it's going to get better and better. So I'll be here for the rest of this week, and then we got some more surprises for you after that. God bless you all. Thank you very much.